Wherever you live, you have seen the Japanese cars dominating in the roads, and maybe even your neighbor is using a Japanese manufactured car. Have you ever thought, why is it Japan? Why not some other countries? Apparently, after the rise of modern technologies, many countries had the opportunity to grow in the automobile industry, but how Japanese companies like Toyota, Honda, and Nissan got so big being Japanese companies? Let's get into the case study. The current market has various cars to offer. The rise of electric cars is not new, and we all know that the market share of electric cars are rising. Still, that did not impact on the dominance of Japanese automobile companies and their market share. Even as of 2021, the famous and elite automobile companies like Mercedes and BMW have a very tiny market share compared to the market share of Japanese manufacturers. Toyota, as of 2021, had a market share of 10.5% worldwide. Honda and Nissan consecutively had a market share of 5.3% and 4.6%. Can you imagine how large the number can be? According to the stats and available data as of 2021, around 66.7 million cars were sold globally, up from 63.8 million in 2020. Which means nearly 14 million cars that were sold in 2021 was Japanese manufactured. Whereas, giant automobile companies like Mercedes and BMW sold only 3.8 million cars in the same year. It is the only reason that makes you see Japanese car on the roads and street more than any other brands. Whether you talk about Asia, Europe, or America, everywhere Japanese brands have proclaimed a market share long before you've even realized how the country has become such dominant. It takes us back to the time of the World War II. The American bombers devastated Hiroshima and Nagasaki with atom bombs, and the war came to an end with the incident in 1945. However, the entire Japan was restructured, their economy was crippled, and their harvest and cultivation got stopped. During the time Japan did not have one single sector that was going upright, the war had costed them a lot. However, the determination of Japan and its people was to rise. The first thing Japan did to tackle the situation and damages of war is kind of a strange decision, but it was the basement of the current supremacy of the country in all sectors, as well as the decision helped to grow the automobile companies a lot. Abandoning the military and cherishing the engineers. The devastated post-war situation country made many people unemployed, along with the 13 million military recruits of the country, and also the businesses related to subsiding the military with equipment and arms got collapsed. Also, it was the time when the US occupied Japan as one of their Asian allies to impose control over the region. But how did that help Japan to revamp? Through American influence in the country, Japan lost the right to have a military. They only had the chance to have a tiny military power for the internal affairs in the country and for the purpose of self-defense. This reduced the huge cost of maintaining an entire military, and Japan got saved from the burden of subsidizing an army. As an investment, they invested the money in education, and they focused on making better engineers and skilled professionals who can help to uphold the GDP of the country. If it still seems complicated to you, a simple example can make you understand it better. During the year 2018, 15% of the Indian GDP was contributed by the manufacturing sector, which is a complete role of the engineers. Compared to that, the expense of maintaining an army in the year 2018 was $63 billion, which means that the investment on the engineers is a greater return on investment, whereas military is a big burden. We do not mean to say that military is not necessary, but during that time Japan did not need the burden of military, and what they needed was skilled human resource. Making their people educated was the first crucial thing that Japan did, which made them successful in terms of electronics and automobile manufacturing. However, there are some other things that helped the devastated economy to get boosted even more. The Japanese Keiretsu model. This was one of the most effective business models that helped the country to grow up altogether. Through the Keiretsu model, an ideology of working together has been brought up. But to understand the model, you have to understand the general business dealings among a car manufacturing company and its suppliers. Suppose Ford, which is an American company, is dependent on a specific supply and name date for the supply of seat leathers, and they've made a deal for 3 years. The supplier provides them processed seat leathers at a price of $500 for each car as per the contract. But the supplier buys it from a manufacturer named B at a price of $450, who pre-processes the leather. If after 2 years leather processing cost becomes $498, the middleman A will still have to provide Ford with leathers at the same price, but his purchasing prices are comparatively much higher than earlier because of costly manufacturing process. No matter how much loss the supplier's business face, Ford will not bear any kind of burden of the supplier's loss, and they will strictly try to emphasize on mainlining the prices of the deal. In a normal business environment, each of the businesses put their utmost concern on their own business rather than focusing on the growth of others' businesses. The Keiretsu model is completely different from this. In a Keiretsu model, all the entities of a business, such as the manufacturers, suppliers, contractors, etc., are connected through a core company and a major bank. In this case, Toyota, Nissan, Honda will have a stake in the business of the supplier, and the supplier will also have tiny stakes in the business of the companies. The supplier's contractors will have a stake in the business of the supplier, and vice versa. Finally, the core company and bank we talked about will have a stake in all the businesses and the companies. This way, an interrelated system develops so that the businesses and companies can help each other to grow in time of difficulties. If a dealing happens under the Keiretsu model, the scenario would be different. Such dealing with the suppliers are usually a very long time deals, like 20 to 30 years. Even if the price of leather manufacturing increases and the supplier faces loss, Toyota, being a part of the deal, will buy pre-processed leather from the manufacturer to save the cost and give it to the supplier to make processed leather. This way, the business of both Toyota and the supplier gets benefited and abstain from facing loss. Such business model made the Japanese automobile companies manufacture car at a comparatively lower price from the other companies worldwide. And the companies also had more profit percentage because of the Keiretsu model. Growth of business surely depends on the profit generation, because through earning profits, a company gets the ability to invest more for the expansion of business. Similarly, the Japanese car manufacturing companies like Toyota, Honda, Nissan got the opportunity to run business at higher profit margin, and they were able to make better products and distribute it worldwide because of their solid revenue generation process. Besides, the core banks that hold stake in the companies offer loans to the businesses with a very low interest rate so that the money can be used in the expansion and growth of business. There is even a greater strategy of the businesses that collaborates in a Keiretsu model. We all know the importance of research and development for the betterment of an industry that involves machineries and technologies. The companies under the Keiretsu model share their research and development findings as well as their engineers to ensure a mutual growth of all the businesses that includes in the model. In a scenario like this, the Japanese automobile companies work as a team to progress better in terms of technological advancement. The just-in-time method. Before the 90s, car manufacturing was done following the just-in-case method. In this method, a certain number of cars used to get manufactured before even any purchase orders, and then as per the orders, cars were sold. As an example, back then Nissan used to manufacture 500 Nissan Sunny models before getting any orders. After that, they had to wait for orders and change the color of cars in case of requirement of the orders. But in the just-in-time method, companies change the system, and a car is manufactured only after the order. As an example, 300 Honda Accords will be produced only after it has been ordered for. This way, the companies avoided so much cost compared to the just-in-case method. The cost of land for storing enormous number of manufactured cars reduced. Similarly, the raw materials, labors, electricity, etc. are used only when the car is ordered. The Japanese people. Not but the least, the workaholic attitude of the Japanese people was one of the key things for the Japanese car manufacturing industry to grow. Without the help of intelligent and hard-working people, the country would never be at the place where they are currently, and we wouldn't see the reign of Japanese cars in our roads.